So this is the first video where we move past talking about the principles and what deep relationships are really made up of to how we actually start doing it and some of the specifics. And we're going to talk specifically about 3 different kinds of relationships that you already have in your life. We're going to talk about your relationship with your friends, how you can develop deep relationships with your friends, how you can develop a deeper relationship with your parents, and how you can develop a deep and significant relationship with a partner or in a dating relationship. But we're going to start this first video here talking about how to develop deep relationships with friends. And as we get started, let me talk about a myth that we often buy into and believe. And it's kind of this myth that we actually kind of live by a whole lot. And it's the myth that basically says you just kind of fall into friendships, that friendships kind of just happen, right? And if you think about like your friends that you currently have, you know, how did you meet them? How did you become friends? Often maybe it's because they're hangover friends from high school, or you know, friends that you still have from your uni days or whatever, and you got to know those people by going to school together, sitting in the same class, having a set of shared common experiences. Well, what I'm suggesting is when it comes to deep and significant relationships, we need to develop those and enter into a little more intentionality. And for that to happen, often we think that's gonna, you know, well, that's kind of forcing it, right? And friendships don't really happen that way. And if you force it, it's never gonna work out. It's always gonna feel forced and whatnot. But what if we were to actually start creating a set of experiences where we connected with people and shared common experiences and things like that we intentionally created? How's that any different than the set of shared experiences that your school created for you to experience with your current friendships? See, I think the old adage is actually true where it says you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. But the sad truth is that very few of us actually do choose our friends. We just kind of exist in these relationships with friends that maybe we barely even like, and we just kind of perpetuate them and keep them going because we don't know any better. And we think that if we were to actually, you know, start being intentional about choosing friends, that would be forcing it and it wouldn't work out in the end. It's just not true. That's a myth that we need to dispel, I guess, you know, and move past. See, I think what's true is we can, if we want to develop real friendships, we need to be a little intentional about it. We need to be a little bit focused on it. And it is actually possible for us. Rather than being reactive to friendships, let's be a little proactive. Rather than allowing friendships to happen to us, what if we actually started to develop and create friendships that are significant and meaningful? And that's really what this is all about. So, the first step in seeing that become a reality for you is to be selective. Be selective. Step 1, be selective, right? It's important to acknowledge that, you know, not all of your friendships are going to be able to move into deep, significant, meaningful relationships. So you got to be selective, right? That's not feasible, nor is it sustainable. You know, so you got to be a little bit selective. And that's not meaning that you have to become some elitist or exclusivist and cut off all, you know, your other friendships. I'm just suggesting that we got to be a little intentional if we want to experience deep relationships. So be selective. The best place to start is to think through your existing friendships. Who are those people already in your life that you naturally connect well with, that you get along easily with, that you trust quite easily, and you would find yourself being quite comfortable and at ease with? That's probably a great place to start. You've got someone in mind, then you're ready to move on to the next step. If you don't already have someone in mind, then start thinking about like the next circle, a circle of acquaintances, people that you know from work or friends of friends or whoever, who you, when you met them, there was something about them that you really liked. You know, that there was something intriguing or caught your attention, and think about maybe someone like that who you would like to get to know more. And then set it up, you know, start finding ways to intentionally run into them a little bit more or connect with them more, or you know, call them up and invite them to go grab a coffee and have a catch up. I mean, so identify who that person is or people are and be a little bit selective about it. And if you find yourself still there and you're thinking, man, I don't think anyone is even coming to mind, that's okay, that's okay. Continue to follow through the rest of this video, because in the next step we'll actually start to identify some of the things that you want to look for in that person, so that as you're meeting other people and as you move forward from this, you'll actually know the kind of person that you're looking for in developing a deep friendship. But as a final note, let me just say, to encourage you in this step, like, to look for, and as you're being selective, to choose someone who's generally a little more upbeat and positive about life. The reason for that is because if you're starting to connect deeply with someone who's quite negative and cynical and whatnot, and critical about life, that negativity only breeds more negativity. And that's going to just die out and kill out a relationship. So look for someone who's generally a little bit more upbeat and positive about life, and I think that'll set you off on the right step. Step two is to start envisioning what could be for this friendship. And this is pretty straightforward. It shouldn't take you long. Grab a pen and a piece of paper and then spend about 10 minutes just kind of dreaming about what you would value most in a deep friendship. So here's what I would suggest. On the first side of the paper, with the person that you've just identified from step one, with that person in mind, start to list down the things that you value or admire most about that person. And don't overanalyze it. Don't think too much about it. This should just go really quick. Should only take a couple of minutes. And once you get a list of about 5 to 7 things, then you're good and you're ready to move on. So what are those 5 to 7 things about that person that you really just admire and value most? Get that down just really quickly, and then do the same thing. So start another column right next to that. 5 to 7 things that you think you bring into a friendship. Now, this isn't about just blowing our own horn and that kind of thing. This is just a chance for you to be honest and open about those things that you think you have to contribute and offer to a friendship. And list those things down. 5 to 7 things. And again, don't overanalyze it. Don't draw this thing out. Just really quick, couple of minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes. List down 5 to 7 things. And then flip the page over and start to dream about what this friendship might look like with those 2 people in mind and those 2 things those 2 lists that you've just created. What kinds of things would you value most in this friendship? How would you maybe experience those things in this relationship? What kinds of things could you do together to start to accomplish that kind of experience? And I'm not talking about forcing friendships, remember earlier, we're talking about being a little more intentional. And what I'm interested here is actually getting you to dream a little bit about what this friendship might look like. To break out of the mold that you've currently been thinking about friendships and to start envisioning and thinking new and afresh about what this might look like. So I'm not saying this needs to be your evaluative lens either, or kind of the thing in which you grade the friendship on. That's not what this is about either. It's literally trying to break you out of the box of your current modes of thinking about friendships and to start thinking a little more intentionally and proactively about how you move forward in friendships. So step 1, be selective. Step 2, envision what the friendship could look like. Step 3 is to just start. Just start. See, as we mentioned right at the beginning of this video series, deep friendships require us taking the initiative. It requires us taking the initiative, and we talked about that specifically in terms of going below the surface. We've got to get below surface level conversation, and you've got to just start doing that. But even beyond that, let me talk about the kind of environment in which we start having those kind of conversations. See, we can't just expect that the next time you see that person that you've identified in step 1 is going to be the perfect opportunity for you to start asking those kinds of questions. Sometimes we need to be a little bit intentional and initiate and set up a time where you can just meet just with them and grab a coffee at a cafe where you can start connecting and hanging out and getting to know them a little more. You got to be a little bit intentional about it, but you got to just start and take some initiative. But beyond that, if we start talking about moving below the surface, we're talking about asking questions and being vulnerable, and all of that requires us to communicate ourselves in a genuine way that's received well and communicates that we're a safe and trustworthy person, and communicates not only that about ourselves, but also communicates our genuine interest and care and concern for the other person. So when we ask our questions, the tone of voice with which we ask really matters. See, if we ask questions that are kind of clearly like a pointed question, like we're looking for a specific answer, then that's going to cause people to close up and to shut down. It's going to cause them to be defensive, and that's the last thing we want. We want to ask open-ended questions that are genuinely interested in the response that they're going to give. And then when we do ask those questions, we got to be making eye contact. Look at them, because that communicates that you really do care about what they're saying and the answer that they're giving to you. If you find yourself just kind of looking around the room, and that's going to communicate that you're really not that interested in what they're sharing and what they're trying to tell you about. And ultimately that communicates that you're really not all that interested in them at all. So eye contact is essential. Make sure when you ask a question that goes below the surface level that you follow it with really good eye contact. And then have an open body posture. Don't sit there with your arms folded, that communicates that you're kind of closed and just kind of doing this out of obligation or something like that. Have an open posture, maybe sit forward in your seat a little bit more, that just kind of communicates, no, I really do care about you and I'm interested in knowing what you're going to be sharing with me. And then I would also say that, beyond just eye contact and body posture, to smile. I mean, this is like one of the most simple things, right? And yet so easily overlooked is if we actually consider what we're doing with our facial expression, but a genuine, not over the top, or cheesy smile, but just a genuine, natural, warm smile is the most inviting and encouraging thing for people to open up and share. Whereas if we're sitting there kind of closed mouth or tight-lipped or whatnot, it communicates a closedness, and it communicates that to other people. Whereas a warm, genuine smile really is engaging and far more appealing than a blank or closed facial expression. So you might also consider in these initial times of meeting together, as you're taking the initiative, as you're just doing it, using the list that you developed in step 2 as just kind of some of the sparks and ideas for how you might encourage or affirm this person that you're wanting to develop a friendship with. And you can just speak those out loud. And that takes a bit of a risk, right? I mean, that's not often easy to do, especially if you don't know someone really well. So don't give the whole list at once. Maybe just pick one thing at a time and just encourage and affirm those things that you value and admire most about them. And that's just going to cause them to connect deeper with you a little bit quicker, I think. Because we all respond well to encouragement, right? I mean, this is coaching 101. We all respond well to encouragement. And I think that can help move your relationship on further. But at the same time, I'd give a caution to say, don't go too far, too fast. Don't go too far, too fast. Relationships do take time to develop and to go deep. So trust takes time to establish, and there's always ways to keep this moving forward to deeper levels without just running ahead, flat out. And you don't want it to go so slowly that it's going to stall out. It won't happen overnight, but I share this just kind of to set some healthy expectations for how it's going to go. The 4th step, and this is the last step as we talk about developing healthy friendships that go deep below the surface level, is to just keep it up. Just keep doing it. See, don't give up. Relationships, like I said, do take time to form and develop, and that's okay. So don't get discouraged and disappointed if after that first time you have coffee with someone, you walk away and there's no commitment from each other to say, we're going to be best friends for life. I mean, that's okay. It's not to be expected, but stick with it. Keep asking those good questions. Keep affirming those things that you value and appreciate the most about someone else. Keep opening up and sharing vulnerably yourself, and keep initiating with them. See, these are the things that we need to do, not just to start a deep and significant relationship with a friend, but these are the things that we need to do to continue to sustain it and to keep it going beyond. See, relationships aren't a static thing. You don't ever arrive at a deep relationship. They're a dynamic thing. You grow and you develop through them all the time because they're dynamic in nature. So these steps are helpful not just for starting, but also for continuing and growing healthy friendships that I hope for you will become lifelong and truly enrich your life. Hey, if you found this material helpful, then just click on the link below and it'll take you to a website where you can access a whole video series that's developed in helping you to take your relationships deeper. See, I think we are all created to experience deep, meaningful, significant relationships that go beyond just the surface level. So we'll explain some of the principles of what those relationships look like, and then start talking specifically about how you can have those kind of relationships. And you can have it. It is possible. So click on the link below and you'll gain access to the whole video series.